Luthor Strode gave us a taste of the world I could bring to you guys. And now I put up a poll yesterday and you guys decided you want to know more about Miller World. So yes, I'm bringing you the best, or rather one of the best stories from the Miller World, Wanted. Not to be confused with the Wanted movie, although that movie was great with an amazing cast. Curving bullets, it was awesome at that time. But come to find out, they got absolutely like 80% of everything wrong. They were not a cult of assassins. They were not the good guys. And Wesley was not a hero. Neither was Angelina Jolie's character, the Fox. They were all freaking villains. And it's not like DC or Marvel level villains, nah. These guys were psychotic. But I will be giving you the real Wanted, 100% authentic. So get your food, get some popcorn, get a comfortable position, hit the subscribe button, and let's go. So like I said, the movie got some parts wrong, but what they got correctly was our main character's name was actually Wesley, and his best friend and girlfriend were cheating together behind his back. And he knew. He even had lunch with his best friend every day. He went to the same mundane job, got cursed out by his boss, ate the exact same sandwich. On his way back home, he got disrespected by every single person in his neighborhood. And there was this one old guy that kept telling him to cheer up and enjoy his life. His life was pathetic. He was a loser, a big one. But somewhere on earth, another person was living the opposite life. He was having the time of his life. An older gentleman and two young guys were about to have a party. They were even about to shoot a movie. But before he could enjoy his night, he was rudely interrupted by 2 or 3 laser pointers directly at his head. Instinctively, he got out of the way. He was pretty nimble for an older gentleman. But that was not the same for his friends because they died instantly. They were blasted to shreds. But the old guy was still kicking. Going to his drawer, he picked out 2 guns and ran directly for the window, crashing through it. Now you'd be expecting the old guy to fall to his death. But no, he just jumped to the next building and stood on the wall. Yes, he can wall crawl like Spider-Man. He even has the same Spider-Man boots. But like I said, he was quick. He found his attackers and took out all of their kneecaps. Literally. He then took out 2 guys and left 2 guys alive, still crying because their legs were out. The old guy smiled. Didn't they tell you what I was capable of? Didn't they tell you who you came to kill? Didn't they tell you I am the killer? The literal killer. That was his exact name, the killer. He was so good at killing, he became the most dangerous man on earth and was awarded the name the Killer. He wanted to know who ordered this kill, and just to make a point, he took out one of the gunmen instantly. When he asked the last one alive just made it clear that they were the decoys. They were supposed to lead him to this spot. Yes, someone was going to die tonight, but sadly, it was going to be this older gentleman who got blasted. The killer was dead, and this is where the story begins. The next day, we see the killer's burial, and a lot of people were here. A lot of odd characters, an imp, an alien, and some very beautiful people, like this beautiful woman they called the Fox. Everyone was speculating on who killed the killer because he had a list long of enemies. He was literally the killer. And the thing is, the killer also left behind a huge fortune. He was the best assassin in the world for a reason. Everyone expected the money to go to the Fox because he and her were close. But sadly, the killer had a will. And in his will, all his riches went to his son, Wesley. Yes, that loser from the beginning was the killer's son. This freaking super loser, whose best friend was banging his girlfriend, was the son of the greatest killer in history. His girlfriend had the confidence to ask for kids when she was having an affair with his best friend. Who has this type of balls? Her, I guess. His life was still horrible. He kept getting insulted. He hated his job. He was taking pills he did not know he ever needed. But today, things were about to be different because as he came to order his best sandwich, he was interrupted by the fox. Shorty was her, pulling up and telling him to come with her, but he wasn't going anywhere. He loved his sandwich. And she looked at him. You think you're safe? Do you think you're safe because of the cameras? Do you think these cameras are going to stop the fox? Whipping out 2 pistols, she took out everyone in this freaking store. Angelina Jolie did not do this in the movie. She made y'all think she was a hero, but the fox was no hero. She took out innocents just to prove a point. And when she was done, she told him to get in the car. Even when he was in the car, he was still crying, but she let him know that this brooch she's wearing makes her part of a club, a special club called the Fraternity. And because of that badge, she could do anything she wants. Anything. But Wesley wasn't listening, bruh. Wesley was crying. He was crying all the way to the hideout. He was confused because even when he went to the hideout, they were talking about parallel earths and stuff like that, which was weird. But all of a sudden, the ground fell apart and they went like 20 stories below ground to see that this place was literally a clubhouse for psychos. And I mean that in the most literal sense. This place was a haven for supervillains. Yes, you heard me correctly. Supervillains. Every single one of these people were supervillains. Even he was shocked. What does this mean? Are you joking? They had their own version of Bizarro, a guy who talks backwards, who only understands lies. But the most important thing was yet to come, because when he entered the final spot, which was a super lab, he met a short man who apparently knew his father. Him and Wesley's father were apparently close. They came up together, and right now, his father was dead. Wesley was confused because he never met his father, but he got handed an envelope. Apparently now, Wesley was a multi-millionaire. His father left everything to him on one condition, or rather multiple conditions. Wesley was confused. He was supposed to be happy, but all that changed in a split second because he had to change his life. His father knew his son was a loser. His father knew he was living a dead-end job with a woman that did not love him, a best friend who betrays him, and a life he was ashamed of. He was the son of the freaking killer. He has to start living up to his full potential. And that was the condition. He had to become a supervillain. But first, they wanted to test him. Because the killer was so good at killing, it was considered to be a talent. So his son had to have the exact same talent. They tossed him a gun and told him to shoot the wings of some flies, just like the movie. And we know what happens next. Because he was afraid, at the end of the day, under pressure, he decided, okay, let me just try. And he shot the wings off of some freaking flies. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know a bullet is bigger than a fly? But anyways, he did it. And when he did it, everyone was like, of course, because everyone knew his potential but him. At this point, he had to accept it. Because not only was he going to be a rich person, he was going to rule the world. His father was the killer, and this world was a world without heroes. So he was going to be the king of the world. This was going to be fun. Oh, and it is going to be fun. So stick around, guys, because this one will blow your mind. And if you're not a fan of violence, if you're not a fan of supervillains, if you're not a fan, or if you don't have a strong stomach, don't watch this video. I beg of you. How different would your life be if you find out you're not living to your fullest potential? If you find out from the outside source that your life sucks? That is the dilemma the young Wesley Gibbs faces, because right now, his life truly sucks, and he has the opportunity to change it with one choice. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's grow this community. Let's grow this family. After the event of his official meeting with the Fox, Wesley has to make a choice. Is he willing to throw everything away just to be the king of the world? Who wouldn't take that deal? In his office, he called her and let her know, I am ready to become a supervillain. Please help me. And she said, okay, but the first thing you have to do is tell everyone in your office to screw off and walk out of there with your head held high. I mean, deep down, which one of us don't want to tell our boss to screw off? Wesley did it with no question asked. He stormed out of there like a beast. And instantly he went downstairs to hitch a ride with the Fox because it was time for his training. You don't just become the best supervillain in the world overnight. So the first step was to low-key make him a psychotic. He had to desensitize himself to death. So he did target practice on actual dead corpses of actual human beings littered his front. And he shot and kept shooting till he became perfect. But that wasn't all. He was introduced to the slaughterhouse. He had to get comfortable with corpses, every day slaughtering pigs, but not to eat, to just kill. And lastly, he had to take the beating of his life, and I mean the beating of his life, every single day. Unlike the movie where he just enters a bath and is all healed up, this one was different. He got his ass beat continuously for months, until the point he actually decided to fight back. And when he did, the door was open. Everything came flooding out. He was now a full-blown killer, a full-blown psychotic, and he loved it. First thing he was supposed to do was practice on ordinary people going about their day. He was just taking them out on a fucking whim. His life was in full-blown GTA mode, and when he wasn't killing, he was working out. It got to a point, he was a totally different person, and when he went back to his own hood, he decided to treat all those bullies who messed with him by himself, alone. Calling his supervillains to watch, he was spectacular. He was the killer 2.0. And when he was done beating everyone's ass, he went back to his old apartment and packed his stuff. He told his ex-girl everything. I mean, because there was no point in hiding it. The whole point was fuck everyone. I'm the boss. He let her know he knows she's been cheating, and it's fine, honestly. He's just done. Shorty was going crazy. She was like, nah, if you leave me, I'll hurt myself. But he was like, do it. I don't care. And as soon as he walked out, that same old man that's always telling him to keep his head up, so freaking annoying. He just turned and blasted him in the skull. He was done with this pace. He was done with this life. Right now, he was a different person, and he loved it. Later that night was the party, his ceremony, because today he joins the fraternity for real, donning his father's old suit. This was the only place all the supervillains are required to wear their old suits when taking the oath. And he took the oath with no remorse. After the oath, there was a party. Everyone was loving to see the killer's kid. I mean, the killer was like the quarterback, and his kid is supposed to be the next LeBron James, you feel me? But this is when he met him, Professor Rectum. That's why I call him, because he's an ass. And he had a bodyguard called Shithead, who was a literal clump of shit. Sentient shit. He was an amalgamation for like Clayface or something. And right here, he wasn't invited because nobody likes him. When the world supervillain came together to take out all the heroes, they split the continent into 5, and he got the shittiest place, and he has been pissed about it all this time. He doesn't like the fact that the supervillains are on a low. He wants them to rule the world openly, and he hates the killer because the killer used to work for him. So now, obviously, he's the number 1 suspect in his death. But as soon as he threatens Wesley, everyone wants him gone. Because today was supposed to be Wesley's day. So he left, but they knew deep down he was going to come back. He was such a depraved deviant, like a shark. They knew he was going to return to sniff for blood. Even Wesley automatically suspected he killed his father. But nah, he just followed the professor because the professor had something to show him. When the villains took out all the heroes, they erased everything, all their layers, all their super suits. And when they were done, they used some technology to erase people's minds and change the concept of superheroes, made them an idea that people cannot seem to forget. Because in this world, the MCU is here, DC is here, all the comic book heroes are here. And they are here because people cannot seem to forget them. They were such a big part of everyone's lives because they literally were everyone's lives. They flew around every day saving people. The erasure was so precise there was nothing left. Well, the professor kept something, and it was against the rules. He kept the cloak, or rather the cape, of their version of Superman, and he watched it every day. A direct fuck you to the world. Anyways, the next day, our boy Wesley, or should I call him the killer, was having fun. He was now a trained killer, strong enough to take on the Justice League, because right now he was on Earth too, a world filled with heroes, and he was having the time of his life, taking out heroes left and right. He was sent here by this short professor for one reason only. But right now, they needed to get the hell out of here, because this was not their home dimension, so they were attacked left and right. So they crashed into a building, and the teleportation machine opened up, letting them through into their own dimension, only to find out what they went to get was a rock, their version of kryptonite. You'd be asking yourself, why does he need that when there is no Superman? But apparently it was just a gift. Imagine ruling the world that you opened a dimensional portal just to get a gift for a friend. That's a boss move right there. Everyone went back to their normal lives. Right now, our boy Wesley was part of the fraternity, so he parks anyhow. And a cop came over trying to tell him to repark, and he just showed his badge, and the cop was so afraid, he apologized. He came over to Toy Master's house. He met his family. They had been in that dimension for about a whole day, but they were gone for a week because of time dilation. And his wife clearly didn't trust him, but that was besides the point. He brought Wesley here to just give him a warning to watch his back with the fox, because the fox was supposed to inherit all the millions. But now she's his best friend. She's supposed to be a super killer, so act like one. A few days later, they had the conference, the big-ass party held by the leaders of every nation. This is when we find out why Professor Rectum is such a prick. He was apparently a God-fearing man, but because of an accident, he died. But when he went to the afterlife, there was nothing. And when he came back, his body was all messed up, and he left it that way, like a big fuck you to God. Because right now, he was going to do everything he couldn't do before. And I mean everything. All the devious and sadistic shit. He did everything. When it was time for the conference, though, we see the professor giving his friend the jewel. Happy memories. Then the meeting started. This is where we see that the whole point of this meeting was Professor Rectum wanting villains to come out and rule the world openly. No more hiding shit. Commit crimes because you want to commit crimes. But everyone else just wanted to enjoy their money and their lavish life. But we see that half of the council had already joined the professor behind the scenes. And right now, a civil war was going to happen. It was inevitable. Wesley Givens then saw it fit to make a joke about Professor Rectum having coitus with pigs and goats. And the professor corrected him, no, I make love to them. It was such a funny scene. On their way back, we see that the tiny professor used that rock to convince the leader of the Asian nations to join his side, and he was feeling good about himself. So after dropping Wesley off, he decided to take a ride. But something was wrong. His bizarro clone was now holding proper conversation. He shouldn't be holding proper conversation. Only for them to pull into an alley he did not recognize. And we see that it was literally shithead this whole time, transformed into his bodyguard. And right now, he drowned the professor in feces. What a horrible death. Remember what I said about a civil war? Yeah, let's go. Do you want to know the difference between a hero's civil war and a supervillain's civil war? Well, everybody dies in one. I'd also like to remind you guys that Wesley is a bad guy. Every single character in this book are bad people. So don't feel bad and don't idolize them. They are not normal. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I really appreciate it, and I like interacting with all of you. I really do. Okay, so we ended the last video with the beginning of the supervillain civil war. And we get a brief history on the history of supervillains. We learned that the first supervillains were a group of guys dressed naked because they knew other straight men wouldn't want to put hands on them because they were naked. We learned it was the fox telling David this brief history, but David's mind was somewhere else, and she could tell. So she continued on, explaining how before the world was like a circus, people in costume, supervillains and superheroes all looking like freaking geeks and nerds. But she noticed again that David's mind wasn't here, so she asked, what happened to you? And he let her know that yesterday he visited a police station, and she honestly found this funny because police knew better than to arrest a member of the fraternity, but he made it clear he went there on his own Wielding two guns, he went there to hunt, and he did, taking out every single police officer and prisoner for the fun of it. Like I said, Wesley is a bad guy. I mean, he only left one person alive, and when it was time to pull the trigger, he couldn't because he knew he was being a bad person. It's different being a bad guy, being a supervillain, but being a bad person, walking into this place and just messing up people's lives and the lives of their family was really uncalled for. He honestly cried at the scene. He told all of this to Fox because he was vulnerable, and Fox let him know that she wasn't training him to be the world's biggest psychopath. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel like you're doing the worst thing. But your father just wanted to give you a choice. He didn't want you to be a loser. He didn't want you to live a pathetic life without choice. He wanted you to be able to do whatever the hell you wanted to do, even if that was a bad thing. So Wesley asked her the simple question that's been on his mind. Did you kill my father? And she said, no, I could kill anyone on earth, but not your father. Back with the other criminals, they were having fun, especially with the professor's bodyguard. They beat his ass. And this is weird because he was supposed to have the powers of Superman. This is when we find out that the sucker had taken the power for 24 hours, making this big oaf that was on the spectrum vulnerable. Professor Rectum called in because they had trouble dealing with one of the heroes who had powers. So he sent Sucker, and the Sucker did his thing. Using the powers of the professor's bodyguard, he blitzed this freaking imp like freaking Flash. He tore his body up. And back with the super clone, we see him having a conversation with the guy that clearly doesn't want to do this, but his member is telling him to do so, so he does it. I mean, that's his gimmick. He has two minds, one in his brain, one in his private part. And lastly, we see the professor's best friend, Toymaker. He knew they were coming for him, but he wasn't moving. He was ready for death because he knew he was a bad guy. He just asked for them to leave his face intact so his family has something to remember him by. But that was not an option because before coming here, they took care of his family and took photos. I mean, you know what comes next. He went ballistic, telling all his toys to kill everybody. And trust me, they are capable, but this was supervillain, so yeah. But with Wesley, he has just discovered now that he's a wanted man, which shouldn't be possible because the fraternity erases every trace. So if this is out of the news, it means he has been betrayed by the fraternity. And turning behind him, he sees he is facing 6 guns, and all of them had apparently heard of the star boy called the Killer because they were afraid, saying, please drop down the bottle. We know you could kill us with that. It was so funny because Wesley was a loser a few months ago, but now he's the most feared man on planet Earth. We see Shithead telling Wesley to drop his gun, but the fox came from the shadow, wielding a blaster, ready to take everyone out. Shithead laughed because he knew there were 6 guns, but suddenly the phone rang, giving Wesley a split second, and a split second is all he needs, because as soon as he grabbed that blaster, he took everybody out. I mean everybody, headshots, clean. Shithead was all that was left, and he was afraid. Back with Professor Rectum though, he stayed to finish the job, and he finished the job. But Wesley honestly wasn't bothered. He just wanted to know who killed his father. And Shithead couldn't tell him, blaming the professor, but nah, they knew he was lying. So David got the Kleenex and bleached his ass. After Professor Rectum was done, he walked out and he saw witnesses taking all of them out but their child, hoping one day the child learns martial arts and comes to get revenge. He's a deviant, and now he has the world all to himself, and he was going to play. We see now that the world had turned to end of days, and someone was watching from above. Wesley was coming for blood, and he was going to have it. We see Professor Rectum calling the other members of the 5 just to show off the corpse of the professor, which he was freaking eating live. He let them know in the change of status quo. He even unleashed the professor's deviant machine that was built to eat human flesh. unleashing a bunch of innocents into the water and watching the robot eat them alive. He made a promise that he was going to mess the world up, and now he was inviting the five to do something about it. Because this was what he wanted. His realest desire was violence, war, 100%. But he wasn't going to get his dream because all of a sudden we start hearing bang, bang, supervillains dropping like flies, especially the ones that cause chaos. Bang, bang. They didn't care. They were taking everyone out. They knew the sucker was going to be a problem because he had the super strength and flight of Superman. But that was for only 24 hours. And right now his hours were up. So Wesley checked his watch and watched him fall to his death. And when all the scrubs were done with, it was time to go for the boss, commandeering a whole ass truck. Wesley and the Fox unleashed a freaking barrage of bullets, taking everyone out and going back into the base. The other villains got prepared, but they were not ready for Wesley. Wesley was the killer now. He was the killer for a reason. He was a savant with his blasters. Blam, blam, everyone was taken out in a split second. He was merciless, and he was beautiful. Stepping into the main courtyard, he saw they were waiting for him. Every single supervillain that turned their back on him were all assembled in one place. You would expect Wesley to be afraid, right? Nah, he wasn't afraid. He was thinking about his mama. Just realizing now that his mother died, thinking he was gay. He was pissed off. I mean, he went instant kill mode. The Fox got out of the way, and he went ballistic. He took every single person out. I mean, specifically because of his rage. I mean, he's no Superman, so he got hit, but his suit was bulletproof. And so, like a savant with his freaking blasters, he took everybody out spectacularly, flipping, kicking, even when the Fox looked back, because she took her eyes off him for like a second. When she looked back, everyone was dead. She was amazed. Wesley stood in a puddle of blood that wasn't his own. Looking at Professor Rectum, he gave him the last shot. But Wesley, he wasn't going to die because of this prick. Pulling out his dagger, he just flicked the bullet back directly into the professor's throat. It was over. The Fox was proud. The Fox was happy. But Wesley wasn't satisfied. He wanted to know who took his father. And even when the professor Rectum didn't want to answer, he just finished him off. But Wesley was going to get his answers today, right here, right now. Because in the corner, someone was clapping. Wielding his dagger, Wesley got in action position, only to see the person clapping, and dropped it. What? What the fuck? How is this possible? Standing before him was his father. They told me you were dead, but his father just smiled because he was actually very proud at this moment. He was proud of what his son has become. Looking at his boy, he knew right now he had to give him an explanation, and he promised he would. But this is where we leave off. Please like and subscribe and share my YouTube videos. I would really... Yo, welcome back. Okay, so I was told by someone I need to start talking loudly and more clearer, and I think that'll start with this video. I'm sorry, and I apologize. And we are back with the series finale of Wanted. It's been a fun ride, but every good thing must come to an end. And this was a good story. Don't let nobody tell you different. It was vulgar, but it was good. Our boy Wesley is going through it because right now, right here, his father stands before him. Someone he presumed to be dead, long since dead, was alive. On instinct, he whipped out his gun, aiming it at this person's head because he assumed this was a villain that could shapeshift. I mean, I would have done the exact same thing. He told that person, "You must be stupid. You don't know my father passed away, maybe even living under a rock." But something was different because Fox called his name. He told her to shut up, that this is clearly a trick, which currently carries a lot of weight because right now he could kill her before she was the shit, but no more. But Fox told him, "Oi, Wesley, shut up and breathe. This is your real father." He was confused. She cracked a smile. "This is your old man." and he was more confused. This man standing before him clearly didn't have a bullet hole on his skull. This man was alive. He was breathing. Matter of fact, he was smoking. He looked at his son and said, I hope you're not disappointed. I tried to keep my weight in check. This guy was cracking jokes, like this was the moment to crack jokes. Not even waiting for a response, he told Wesley to follow him. Let's have dinner first. And they went to have dinner in their freaking hero gear. Like, this is just a normal outfit for people to wear outside. But they were part of the fraternity. Nobody could hurt them. Wesley asked his father a simple, direct question. So how are you alive? Why are you alive? And why did I have to go through all of this? And his father made it clear that he wanted people to think he was dead. And the only person that could confirm this was his real body was the fox. So clearly the fox was in on it this whole time. It was actually hurtful. Wesley thought he could trust the fox, but clearly he could not. She's the freaking fox. His father apologized and made it clear that all that was for a reason, but everything was going to end tonight, for sure. And I promise you, there's going to be a death. Later that night, we see Wesley and his father and the fox taking a walk down memory lane because his father wanted to tell him about his birth, his origin story. Because back then, when the world was still cartoony, there was a place, a bar, where all the supervillains used to hang out. All the assassins, all the super criminals stayed in this one club. And it was an adult club. The type of club that you go in with your partner and take another person's partner and leave. And when he saw Wesley's mother, he was completely absorbed with her. So obviously you know what happened next. They shagged for 2 days straight. I mean, they're super criminals. And Wesley's mom was not a criminal, but she was a social worker of a criminal. So they started dating. But yeah, anyways, they shagged for 2 days straight. And he was proud of this because he was telling his son. But Wesley was visibly uncomfortable, which annoyed his father. But he decided to move on because that was not the point of the story. And Wesley asked, what is the point? If you loved her so much, why did you leave? And his father turned back and told him the truth. Because he left because she wanted him to stop. And that was not possible. He was at the top of his game. They were about to kill every single superhero and own the world. And she wanted him to quit. And when he didn't, she kept their son away from him. But he was the best assassin in the world. He was going to see his son every night, to be exact. And on the D-Day, when every hero was about to die, 2 billion people died. 2 billion people lost their lives. And he protected his family. Do you know what that means? That means he let 2 billion people die just to protect his family. When they say, I will let the world burn for you, he did that literally. When reality was changed and she forgot about him, he still protected his family. Taking Wesley back to the family home, Wesley remembered this place. And so did Wesley's father, because this was where he saw it take place. The moment that would enrage Wesley's father so much he shed a tear. It was a regular day. He was clothed, invincible, watching over his son. But suddenly there was a fight. And this was the moment where he became proud, because he thought his son, the literal seed of the supervillain called the Killer, would take action and beat the crap out of his bully. He watched as his son was weak, crying, taking punch after punch after punch. This was pathetic. And when his mother came out, she told him he was a good boy. He was a warrior for not fighting back. Watching this, his father could not believe his mother had made him docile, had made him subservient to all trials and tribulations of the world. His mother had made him a pussy. He knew that somewhere in this woman's mind, she knew her son could be the greatest killer on this planet, and she was right. So she tried her best as a good mother to let him not know violence, because the second he knows it, he will be the master of it. But he was still disappointed. That was what sparked this whole plan. And Wesley remembered that he always remembered someone touching his hair, someone leaving him teddy bears. Looking at his father right now, he knew that this was the man who gave birth to him, the man who truly loved him. And he embraced his father on this dark night. But the night wasn't over, because later that evening, they found their way to Wesley's mother's grave. Standing before it, his father smiled. saying he loved this woman. Looking at the fox, she asked him whether he wanted the Smith & Wesson or the M92, and he said the M92, giving him the gun. Wesley was confused, but the request was simple. I need you to kill me, son. Looking at his father, he was confused. He thought this was a joke. Nah, are you fooling, man? I'm not killing you. We just met, and I love you. You can't ask me to kill my own father. But his father wasn't giving him a choice, because this was the last step to claiming his money. This was the destiny of the killer, to take his own father out. He looked at his son, telling him, I love you, but this is the way it has to be. No one else is allowed to kill me but you. Wesley asked his father, why do you have to die? You have no other enemies. Everyone else is dead. But he made it clear that he cannot stand the idea of not being the best. And he is old. So right now, this is the only ending he's accepting. You have to kill me. So stop being a pussy and kill your old man. He told his son he loved him. And Wesley told him he loved him back. And they both smiled. And Wesley squeezed the trigger, blowing the brains out of his father's skull. The fox smiled, calling in the helicopter to come pick them up. Wesley was now a rich man, but he didn't want the money. You just watched me kill my own father. The money means nothing. He started walking away, and the fox was confused, asking him, so what you going to do now? Are you going to go back to your normal job? Go back to your boring-ass life after seeing all of this? And he said, of course. But she smiled. You're joking with me, right? And he smiled back. Of course I am. Calling the helicopter. Let's go see what 10 million looks like. And that was the end of his story. Wesley was a rich man, and he was currently the leader of the fraternity. This is a reminder of you to stop taking garbage from everyone around you. Fight for what you want, or else Wesley will come fight you. Thank you for watching my video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe, drop a comment, and like. And get ready for the next installation of the Millerverse.